Hey, and welcome to another episode of Creative Leaders Unplugged. I'm Morgan. You're Arna.
That's not a question mark. That's not a. I'm Morgan again. Am I? Is this my
Who am I?
script? Yes, you're Morgan.
I
I'm
almost
Arna.
said I'm
No,
Arna, and I was like, that's not right.
I'm Arna. I'm Arna. That'd be a surprise. Now you're. That's gonna be that'll be very confusing. No, we're not, and we're just gonna keep this. By the way, no. Hey, Morgan. How
Today
are
I'm
you?
Morgan.
Today you're Morgan. Today I am Arna.
Or Arna.
And,
And we had a great conversation with Marc Stickdorn, the same, the always, the future, the past, Marc Stickdorn. Um,
yeah.
we
Which
talked
to
about
me was funny because you know the book that
Mhm.
was had such a big impact.
Yeah,
This is Servant Design Thinking. You had it as a textbook.
I had it as a
Didn't
textbook. Yeah, yeah.
it's not
So
funny.
I
Makes me feel so old as well. Like,
yeah, I get to
oh,
meet my textbook heroes. But
she's
I
like,
think
whoever got a textbook that then yeah, no, it's fun. No, because when the book, when he was getting that book done, when as I had a little part of that as well, writing it and introducing him to the publisher, but it the idea that somehow along the line people will study that at school is like that was not a thought he had, like
no,
that
yeah.
was not like really like yeah.
I'm gonna write this book someday, so yeah.
Yeah, because that's such a, well, textbooks are textbooks written for students, for schools, for
Yeah.
academic learning. They are there. People do that. This was not that book. It wasn't
No,
meant to
no.
be something to be studied at school. At
It's
least
just it's really,
as
and
far
if
as
you
I.
haven't read This is Service Design Thinking, highly recommend. But it's really a guidebook. It doesn't feel like a textbook.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, but yeah, exactly.
it changed a
So
lot of things, and we talk about that in the episode.
yeah,
We talk
so
about the past, the present, the future, how we look at that.
yeah, we're backing into the future. I love that that story you shared. Yeah, that's gonna stay with me for a while. So yeah, so Mark is an old friend, obviously. Again, so sorry, Morgan.
It was
Yeah,
very enjoyable. Yes.
yeah. We basically, we met at the start of the whole service design movement in Europe and the world, really. And then yeah. So we had many journeys together and adventures and again, yeah, around the world. It was kind of funny to see him again, because we haven't seen each other because of the pandemic, and everything kind of moved to online, and
Yeah.
got busy, and his company is doing really well, and so life happens. So really nice having him on the show. I think he has been and is still one of those people that has been central to this whole movement around service design, and working differently. And he has been one of those really impactful people, an organizer, a doer, a creative leader. He's one of those examples of
Yeah.
people who really made an impact by doing these things, by setting an example of, hey, this is possible, or here are some other options, and then people go like, oh, that's great. I didn't know that. And so, people listen to him and see what he does, and then, not always follow his path correctly. When he goes like, no, that's not what I meant. So it's a bit like there's a Monty Python kind of esque moment, like, you know, what, no, yeah, I don't know
What's
if you know that
happening?
scene
Yeah.
with the followers of the sandal. But anyway, so there's this moment where he had a big impact that still resonates with the service design movement, and so it's really nice to have him on the show.
Yeah. Really enjoyed, and yeah, hope you guys enjoy it as well.
So if you ask me like professional, like what, not who are you, but what do you do,
No.
then I typically say I work with computers.
Yeah,
That
but that's not what
usually
we
ends
asked.
the
We're not. We don't
conversation.
care. We don't care about that. Exactly. That's like,
Yeah.
really, you were a quick computer.
Yeah, you're one of those. Okay, fair enough. Like in my private life, like I have a pretty pretty distinction between my business life and my private life. My business life is anything related to service design, innovation, journey management, all that stuff, right? And I think that's a very different conversation that I'm having then compared to with people I meet privately. Like I live in a little village outside of Innsbruck, and when I meet other parents of in the kindergarten and so on, and they ask me, "So who are you?" I'm the German. Like I'm the German dude living in Austria, married to an Austrian wife. And that's probably enough. And then if they ask like, okay, and what do you do? I work with computers. And then they have their bucket for me, which is the German dude working with computers. Not interesting. That ends the conversation. That's if I want to move on with conversations, then I rather talk about hobbies and stuff we really like to do on the weekend, like going out hiking and skiing and surfing and stuff like that.
You can surf in Innsbruck?
No.
Oh.
That is a story in itself. I think it was like 12 years ago. They built something in the river where they thought you could surf, but it never worked.
Oh no!
That was a really interesting project. Like actually, an interesting story of failed innovation.
Yeah, because in Munich they have a spot in the river where you can surf.
Yep,
which is quite cool. Yeah,
really.
Yes, I tried it. There are actually a few of them. There's the famous one in the English Garden, and there are others a little bit outside of the city, which are not so famous. Where I don't know the English name for it. They used to ship wood using the rivers, and to speed up those they put the wood together into big platforms, kind of. And to speed them up, they build things into these rivers that that speeds up the river, and that is making a small wave at the bottom of it. So it's actually enough to go kind of surfing, right? It's river surf, completely different to proper surfing.
Listen, I've never heard of river surfing. So from my brain is going, what are you talking about?
There's like a little wave. It's standing still. The wave is standing, and you're moving yourself then around there. But the funny thing is, there are tourists now on these big chunks of wood, and they still use that stuff. So if you don't take care, you might end up with like this big, massive wood thing. Their music. Like whole chapels on it, like people celebrating. It's a big party, and you really need to take care not to crash into one of those. It's big fun.
Wow, that's really cool.
I was younger. I can't do it anymore, honestly.
This podcast is taking a really weird twist.
I love
So I have to look it up. Sorry, this is totally new to me. River surfing. I think okay. So, but no, like so in Innsbruck they tried it. It didn't work. Okay, and so okay, but so did you end up in Austria because of the girl?
No, I met her here. So I moved to Austria in 2008, like 16 years ago, and I came here because of a job. I started a job working at the local business school, the Management Center Innsbruck. And I was working in the tourism faculty there, so the MCI tourism. I started a job there as, I don't know my title at that time, research assistant, lecturer and research assistant, I think it was.
The German assistant.
Yeah.
No, seriously, of course I know this because I that's
you were here quite often.
I taught some classes there, which was cool. I learned something also that because I think it was the first time I taught really a class with young people. I think it was the first time. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, so
and I think it was actually the first time that service design was taught in a business school.
Yeah, it was the first time. Wow, that's amazing. So. Yeah, but we are talking about the start of the service design movement. 2008 was really important moment. But we'll come back to this. But my anecdote for the teaching, what I learned from you, was on a very practical level about teaching. Is that so? I was at the time used to facilitating sessions and workshops and stuff like that. So I remember basically to me it was like this is group of people and I'm going to kind of facilitate some kind of workshop with them as, not just as a teacher. But it's like you go like crazy because you're so exhausting to spend that time, all that time, just being sort of there, present, and so you said, Arne, you can just go out and have a coffee every now and then, right? Just kind of spread your energy, like, oh yeah, okay, yes, that's a good idea. All right. So no, it's really because I always remember that as if I teach, at a school, to go like, have them do things. Also a facilitator, obviously, take care of your own energy as well. Don't be, switch on all the time, which was actually interesting. Yeah, it's good lesson. But going back to 2008, because I didn't know, actually now thinking that was because we met in 2008. I thought you were already at the school longer, but actually that's the first year, because when we met in Kuopio, Finland, at the design school where Satu Miten, who was also interviewed in this podcast a long time ago, was teaching. She kind of wrote this, I think, first book about service design. I think it was the first book. And she organized a seminar for her school and other guests on service design. And so I'll tell you my side of the story, is that I was asked, because it was a really important year, that 2008, by the way, because I met you. No, because no, also because I met you, without, no, I'm not kidding, but because I can tie everything back to Satu Mitin. My career goes to Satu, and then to people like you, and then other people.
That's a great person. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I was there and I spoke about service design. You were in the audience and you were going, we've been in tourism, in tourism, we've been doing this for many, many years. This is nothing new, nothing new. This is nonsense.
That's right.
So, right. And then that's where we became friends, because I'm like, this is really cool. Sorry, what?
You were like heckling him in the audience?
No, he was, well, no, I don't think
in the audience and everywhere else as well. Yeah.
I don't know. Did you speak up during I don't know. I think afterwards.
I can't remember.
No, I don't think so. I just remember us sitting next to each other, looking at the other lectures, going, and they were all in Finnish, going like, what's that? That's like Japanese. It's Finnish, like it has the same. So it's really nice. It doesn't go up and down a lot like Scandinavian languages go. So that's how we were like, what are you talking about?
If you don't understand it, it's actually getting very tiring.
Yeah, like I should record this where you go to sleep. This is amazing. And
I remember we were both complaining that they tricked us, because Satu claimed it to be a summer school. It was freezing. Summer in Finland is freezing cold.
Exactly. Yes, that's true. We
were doing things outside. Like we had, we did experience prototyping, and it was actually really, really nice. Or was it a year later? I can't remember, but it was in summer there, and it was freaking cold. And they put fire pits everywhere so you could warm yourself a little bit. And
were you there when we took the bus? They took us on a trip in a bus to a sort of like a open space something. I can't remember why we were there. There was like an open space. Yeah, and it took like long, I don't know, in my mind, it was hours in the bus. And the only thing you could see was trees, right? So it's trees. And then there was one open space. And you're like, look, an open space. Let's sit here and do, I can't remember what we did. But it was
it was an old, how do you call it, quarry? Where you take rocks out. And
a quarry,
yes, and they put in some staged experience with some musicians and a bit of food, but it was all freaky cold. So it was a prototype. They wanted to test if they could use that site for touristic purposes. So they built a prototype of this service, and we were the ones experiencing it. It was really, really nice and was well done. And a hat tip to Satu for setting all that up. But it was freaky cold.
Yeah. No, but to be honest, I was so impressed by the way the Finns, the way they kind of absorb and are so sort of everything that is happening and all these new things, and they just absorb it, they listen, they use it, and they start using it, and they're so fast adopting all these things. So, and specifically, obviously, Satu. But this is where we met, and I think that time we started having that conversation. But I didn't know you were, because then you invited me to come over in your class to kind of do like a guest lecturing thing, right?
So the thing is, I was at that time, I was when I summarize it really, really shortly, it was like I felt like a boy opening up a box of toys because I finally found names for what we were doing already. And I only realized later that that actually was a common pattern amongst many of us. We were all doing service design in different fragrances, but we didn't call it like this, right? And it was that year, 2008, when I finally found a community for it, when I found a word for it, and when I realized that there is actually a process and tools and methods and other people doing it. That was fantastic. Because I remember we had long discussions in Kuropio and over Twitter. Twitter was the thing at that time.
Yeah.
The whole core community at that time had long discussions on Twitter. And we were talking about, okay, what's new? What's different? And we realized actually there is not so much new, but we finally have names for it. And we can talk about a thing that we were doing all slightly differently in different industries, in different backgrounds and so on.
Yeah, exactly.
So did you come to it then through the tourism industry?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my background actually is tourism. Like when I go back, like I said, I was surfing and snowboarding. I was a surf teacher in summer, a snowboard teacher in winter. That's how I financed my studies. And I actually studied strategic management in tourism. And I was working in tourism. Like the first 10 years of my professional life, I was working in tourism and doing innovation then there, failing really hard, trying to do innovation, how they teach me at a traditional German business school, which basically was write your 80-page business plan and then execute, which oh gosh, like if I think about that, horrible. And I tried it like this and I failed really hard until I learned there are different ways to do it. And one thing about tourism, which still primes my thinking, is everything is a journey. Everything is about experience. Like what you're selling in tourism is an experience, is the memories. Like you're designing tourism products with the intention to create beautiful memories. You think about moments that matters, which actually is a term that's coming from the travel industry. And a lot of similarities there are. And a lot of the language we're using, we talk about journeys and maps, actually coming from that part of the world. So that was my entry point. When I started here in Innsbruck.
That's what he was saying when he was like, this is exactly this.
Old news.
It all comes from tourism,
which is not true, right? It's not all from tourism. But
no, I know. No, but you're right. No, but you know what the thing is with tourism and traveling and that kind of that, like, let's call it a product. If that is because it's literally journeys, it makes so much. Of course, you're thinking about journeys, but it makes so much more sense if you think about it. So it's such a great way of it's to make it very simple. Because if you talk about journeys and banking, for instance, or insurance or something, you go like, it's very abstract because what is it? But because in tourism, in journeys, and you go but then even then the whole idea of piecing all these bits of a journey together in one journey, saying, well, first you book your holiday, you pack your stuff, you go take a car or a taxi to you're going to take a taxi to an airport, and you take the plane, and then you go to take a taxi, or maybe you rent a car, and then you go to a hotel, and then you go back again, and you're home. And so these are all separated pieces. So also in tourism, those were always kind of things that were kind of taken care of by different organizations, but being able to kind of design one complete journey, or think about it as one complete journey. Because if you're I've done some project for the airport here in the Netherlands, Schiphol Airport, and so if the train would break down to the airport, people hated the airport more in their numbers, in their research, because they came in with this bad experience, like of having these horrible train delays and stress and stuff. And then Schiphol Airport said, "It's not our fault. Why do we get bad feedback? It is not that's the train company." But this whole notion of, yeah, but no, that's not the point. To zoom out and look at the whole experience. So tourism is like, yeah. So I came into service design also without totally knowing anything really. So, and actually you came into service design already having a background in that language,
Yeah.
way more than I had. So I was just faking it.
And I don't and
you were doing it,
and I don't know how I've never made the connection before, but as a young kid, I was super, super into Walt Disney World and Walt Disneyland and how they designed the whole experience.
There you
So I
go.
didn't care about the movies and the characters. I would go to the library and get the books that said, yeah, there's a secret passage here, or they place the trash cans so far apart to make sure everybody uses them, or they pump smells through the air, all this thing. And that would have been what, like 96, 97 for me. And they were already thinking about that. And I never made the connection until just now, because that's also a service. Yeah.
Let's do a little history class. What do you think? When was the first service blueprint used?
Oh,
Maybe not under the name of service blueprint as Lynn Shoestack then established it in 1980, but it was 1890. It was the Ritz Hotel in New York.
Wow.
And they actually made a blueprint about how they lay out the service, which props are involved, which paperwork is involved, like who gets the customer gets a receipt, the waiter gets a receipt, the restaurant keeps another receipt for accounting. Like, it's fascinating to see that.
1890, that's insane.
The Ritz. Is that available? Is that somewhere? Is that published somewhere?
So a couple of years later, I set up this conference, the Service Design and Tourism Conference, and I remember we had a talk there by Kip Lee. Kip Lee, I think it's a Case Western Reserve University, where he is still teaching, I think, and he did a talk about that. And there was a paper as well. It's been a while ago, like 12, 13 years ago, but I'm sure I can find it somewhere, because he pulled it all out about the history of this. Maps in use. It was fantastic.
But I think it's important because it gives us sort of perspective, right? And so because because we're in this stage of service design and design thinking and all that, where we go like, it's all passé, it's all done, it's
all
like
dead.
It's all dead because but if you then think about it, it's been part of business or the human race really forever. How just because we gave it a name or another name, you can't just say it's gone. Maybe the language changes. Maybe we can't talk about it in the same language anymore, but it's how can it? So so things like 1800, but if you everything we do, change. Things happen at a very slow pace, really. We think things are going really fast, but I think that we are still stuck in the first industrial revolution, really, because we still have the same organizational structures. We still have the same mental models. There's not such a big difference. We think often, we kid ourselves often that and there is something different. There is something different in culture and the way we relate to work. And for sure, there's things changing, but we're also still stuck with those things. So, and I should kind of find out where that there was a I don't know if there was a book or just an article, but it was research done on things that were invented at one point. This could be like just simple machines for working the land or something like. And they made a catalog of all these inventions, and they also discovered that none of these inventions disappeared really they were always somewhere someone was still using it. Nothing ever disappears. That's sort of like, that was the whole thing. It was like, that's so fascinating. It was sort of about machines and things, but sort of nothing ever really disappears. It once we invent it, it might be used by a smaller group of people, or it just it kind of goes under the surface or something, but it's still there somewhere. And I believe in that there, because it's we're part of a movement that's bigger, and we just try to give it names and be part of it, but it has nothing to do with service design or design thinking, or right. So so your history lesson
Was just a question.
yeah, which is good, but no, but I would like to kind of for you, when did you start it? I know that's sort of like in 2008, and you sort of, but then you started teaching service design in at a business school, but that was all very new in a way, right? Also for you at the time. So
It was, yeah, because I just learned that this thing exists there in 2008. I started here in the winter of 2008, and luckily I had a lot of freedom in the faculty to do my own research, to learn about that stuff. So a big thank you to my former boss there, to Hubert, who actually gave me this freedom to learn also what is this thing, because he just learned about it at a conference. He said, that sounds interesting and sounds like what we're doing. We should actually incorporate that. They were building up their new master programs at that time. They said, let's put it into the curriculum. So now someone needs to teach it, and we have this German guy here. Let's him do it. And that's how I ended up with trying to understand what service design is. So the next few years, I really focused on translating what I was doing before into the more universal language of service design. I think that was what many people were doing in 2008. 2008 was the year when we met in Kuopio, but also where later in the year, I think in fall, the first really service design conference happened. There was the SDN conference in Amsterdam, where we met again, and where we saw examples for the first time. At that time was like all like Engine and Livework and Birgit Marger, obviously, and a few others. And it was really a small community at that time. And we were figuring out all together, what is this thing? And then my job was teaching it. And I tried to teach it for some time. And I realized that I'm pointing towards blog posts, and what was a blog post? It wasn't called blog at that time, I guess, or to websites, and it was really hard to teach, and that's why I said,
you mean there was no official articles and stuff like that? That were just just people writing tweets. Basically, you were showing tweets. They on Twitter. See, he talks about
bits and pieces.
Yeah, it's true.
And that's how I started with like, oh shoot, we need a book. That's how the first book happened, because I wanted to have something that makes my life easier in teaching that stuff.
Yeah, because there was no book on a very practical. I mean, Satya's book was there.
Because we both wrote a chapter in it, so it just happened in 2008. I think it was published then in 2009 or something.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. So so Satya's book also was a sort of collection of chapters, and I remembered writing a chapter on something we basically invented as if it was a service design project. But we were trying, and the client was like, no, and we're like, yeah, but so just for the purpose of the book, we really wanted to have this out because I really believed in it, but there were no real client, because this is the start of stuff. So there wasn't no clients saying, let's do a service design project. So the thing we wrote about was sort of we twisted it a little bit. So it became a service design project, but the client didn't know it was a service design project because they had no clue what that was, and they didn't ask us for it. So there is a sort of a faking till you make it moment, but because we saw it, we knew it was there, but we were trying to invent it as well at the same time while doing it, trying to invent it, right? And so yeah, that's Satya's book. So no, but tell us. So you're, because that's I think I should write a book, but It's not like it never happened. So how then? What happens? So you're like, yeah, I should write a book.
Yeah, there's a personal story and the professional story. I tell
We like
both
personal. Yeah, please.
briefly. The professional was I was teaching service design in different courses in the master program. There was no established language around service design, so I said we need a book, and that's why I asked people I knew, because the community was so small. We got people together, and we wrote a book together. The private story of that is Jacob, who I did the book together with, is a good friend. We actually coming from the same town in Germany, and he was doing his I think in Germany at that time was called a diploma in design. And his professor at that time actually is a friend of Arne. It's
Ralph,
Volker.
yes,
Yeah.
Ralph Baker, yes.
And
The small world, yes.
it is a small world. So he said, well, and I met him while he was skiing here. So we hang out, and he said, like I want to write a book. And he said, oh, I'm looking for a topic for my thesis. So I said, well, how about we join forces, we write the book together, and you can use it as your thesis. But then it's not just a thesis, but actually a thing that is useful, because most theses are frankly not useful, right? They end up in the drawer and nobody looks at it again.
Yeah.
And we said yes, not knowing on what kind of a journey we were about to enter. But then one thing happened in my life, that was my knees blew up. So I couldn't do sports. I was really into sports at that time, and I couldn't do sports anymore. And I needed to channel my energy. I needed to get that out somehow. So what I did was, instead of sports, Jacob and I spent nights together, virtually together. Like, we were using probably Skype at that time. And we spent nights and nights and nights working besides our day jobs and university and like getting his diploma done. We spent every night writing this book together, and that was why it happened. Serendipity. There we are again, right?
Yeah. Which is pretty cool. Yeah, exactly. Because
Bad knees were the, or not bad knees, well-loved knees were the secret to
too much used knees. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but exactly. So, I mean, that it's interesting. That's a nice. Actually, if you that story is like kind of, that's life right there, where you go like, something bad happens and then you can't move, and then you write a book, and it has such an impact on everything else. And because it did, I mean, the book had a huge impact. It still has somehow.
Should we mention the book?
Sorry?
Or not necessary? I said, should we mention the book, the title of the book?
It's just
necessary.
it's that book.
The book out there. He wrote it. Yeah. Okay.
Well, it's an interesting. It did so many things on a very surprising level. Also for me, because I wrote a little thing in the book, and I got people. I remember, I mean, we had people coming over to Amsterdam from Japan, taking that book, asking me to put my autograph on the book. I was like, what?
Whoa, rock star.
I just wrote a little bit in it. So you can imagine what Mark kind of must have gone through with that book, because it went viral, if you will, right? But it had a clever kind of design, in the sense that besides it was cleverly designed, but also because there were so many people from the community who also, there's a community, and then if everyone in the community takes part in that, is a co-created thing, then everybody starts promoting that and wanting to have it, and so we would give it to our clients. For instance, we would have like a bunch of them and give it away at when we ran the training or something. So that also made sense, but it was really cleverly done, and it's still valid. Although, if you now read it, to be honest, if I read my own bit, and I read my own bit every time I go to sleep, I read my own voice. I'm like, what did he say? It was so clever. Oh my God, this is so brilliant. No, I got like, well, because there's always a reality, because that's the thing, right? But books stay forever. You can't change them. You can't go like, oh, That was really, huh. Now I think so. It is interesting because whatever you write is still there, and so I'm kind of. I think it's still okay. I haven't reread it, by the way, seriously, but no, but it still is there. And the thing is that it is a people still point to that book, and then obviously there's the follow up. This is we are talking about this is service design thinking, which was a clever thing. It was
No,
this
it was
service
stupid.
design
It
thinking.
was a failed experiment.
Was it?
The title, oh yeah, that is one of my biggest fuck ups. It's that title of the book. Yeah.
Why?
Well, first of all, that book really changed my life, and it affected many people. I didn't expect that to happen.
Right? Everyone who involved, everyone who was even the tiny bits involved somehow wrote like a little bit. It affected everyone. So
it was one of my textbooks as a student, by the way. Yeah.
Sorry for that.
No, but exactly, it became a textbook for students. So it means that people like Morgan, she knew the book, and so there's the people who kind of like you who created the book, and people who were in the book, they became people that people trusted to be experts in that topic, right? So anyway, so
let me tell you the story of my fuck up. That was a title. So we gave it the title. This is service design thinking, and I it's somewhere written in the book, and I talked about it very often. The reason why we gave it that title was at that time there was a huge discussion in the community. What is the difference between service design and design thinking? And with this title, with this combination of the title, I wanted to make sure like I wanted to foster this discussion. Like, it doesn't matter how you call it, right? If it's service design thinking, use whatever relates to you in the context you're in. So in some companies, it's called design thinking, others it's called service design. But if you look at what they're doing, they might do exactly the same thing. It doesn't matter which label you use. But what actually happened with this title is companies started departments for service design thinking.
Yeah.
Even if they had already teams doing design thinking and teams doing service design, they thought, oh, that's something new. So instead of cleaning it up, I added to the mess. And this is something I'm personally responsible for, and I'm very sorry for creating this mess. It was never to be intended as something new. We just wanted to steer this discussion.
Yeah, this is so weird, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, the fact that people really do then you change kind of departments and stuff like that based on the title of a book, and then you go like, "But Jesus, come on, sorry, what's going on?"
But that's because it is a book, right? A book is still a thing.
You can't change,
especially if a book gets. Well, you said viral. I'm not sure if we can still use that word after the pandemic, right? But it spread everywhere. Not sure. I'm making it better. But it got translated into many different languages, right? It's quite highly ranked. Like it was top 10, top 100 business books, whatever thingy. If you go on Amazon, it's still like sometimes a trending book. So it just made. How do you call that? Like it proved a point. And I think that is sometimes more important in an organization, like to say, like we're starting this thing now because there's a book about it.
Yes. Yeah, but it's important to realize. So I think it's an important point to realize that sometimes these things, because this is really, in a way, it's really stupid. It's really silly. So someone wrote a book about it, gave it a name, and so all of a sudden it's a thing. Really, that's it. That's all you need. That's all you need, right? Yeah. But life and business often is like that. It is in very superficial way, but it does give some people some kind of. You need some evidence, or you need some support, some backup, because there were a lot of people, and there are still a lot of people who want to do things differently, but they just need something to support them. So in that sense, it's actually quite a good thing. You go like, but here's a book, and there's a whole bunch of people from different industries. They're saying in the book that they're doing it. You go like, see, we can. So it's a support thing. So in that sense, it's really good. So it's like, if you look at it that way, I think it's such an, that explains the sort of the strength of such a book at the right time. I think that we still, we still need that, and I think we're, to be honest, we're missing that a little bit, because that had a sort of it was also a moment in time, and there was this sense of movement that I don't think we have anymore. At least I don't see it anymore. I'm not part of that, at least not as far as I'm aware of. I don't have that feeling anymore. But I want to go back just quickly, because you said it changed your life. I just want to kind of know, like, how did it change your life? Your life, not your like. How did
Yeah.
that? What did it do?
Well, I'm not working at the university anymore.
They fired you.
Yeah.
You're writing books.
Off you go.
Go away.
So
No.
it changed my life to the better and to the worse in some extent. Like
Tell us.
So when I came here, I wanted to do a PhD. That's why I started working at a university, right? And officially, I'm still a student. I'm still doing my PhD at the University of Nuremberg. Greetings to my PhD supervisor. Yes. Oh gosh, it's embarrassing, but so I published a lot of academic papers in that years, and I actually got quite far in the sense, like I published too many papers, and all I need to do is put that together into a thesis, which is probably the work of like 2 months. And I'm in the same state now since maybe 13, 14 years. So I'm almost done with my PhD since 13 years. Katrin, I'm my PhD supervisor. I'm really, really sorry about that. I'm going to finish it at some point, but life happened in between. What happened was, through the book, obviously, there was quite some interest in working with me. So I started teaching at different universities. I started doing consulting. I worked in projects, and it all became really crazy in these years. Like I traveled all over the world. I've been working in projects all over the place. I learned a lot. It was fantastic. And out of that, then, because I worked in so many different projects, I saw the common need to do journey mapping differently. And what I saw at that time was, when organizations did journey mapping, they used either design tools, like at that time, 2010, 2011, there was mainly like InDesign, which means it was not accessible. Like only the designer who created a map was able to do this. And then there were others who used tools like Excel or PowerPoint with really, really ugly journey maps. But I saw they've been used and reused and shared. They were accessible. So I said, we need to change that. If we really want to bring this into organizations, we need to change how the tool set people are using to create journeys. And that's why we founded Smaply, the first journey mapping tool, in 2011. And then we published it in 2013. And that was the first software which at that time claimed to be both accessible, like really easy to use, and creating decent journey map. A long story from there, but that became then my main job, like running a software company.
Yeah. So that because of the book.
As well, yes.
Yeah.
And you said it changed your life also for the worst.
Yeah, I still don't have my
Old
PhD.
wounds. Okay, sure.
Oh, that's the worst thing. Oh. Well, that's all. If that's the only complaint,
It makes you feel better. Me neither. So
Nah,
yeah,
it's all
me,
good. It's all good.
me neither.
never started
It's
one.
just a
I don't-
title. Yeah. No, it really had a massive positive impact on my life. I found what I love to do. I found my passion, and I love teaching, but it's
you'd rather
not
be
what I
the,
want to do.
You'd rather be the
all my life.
German computer guy. That's
Yeah.
really what you
Well,
want to be.
I like to keep my professional and business life separated. Like if I'm in the weekend, I don't want to talk about service design. Because like one of the bad things is you see it all the time with every service. You look at this, like, oh shit, you can't do this. Why are you doing it like this? And you can't unsee that. But then at least I don't want to talk about it in the weekends.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think about this. I think I
My dad is like he just retired, but was a safety engineer. So would go into factories and look for, things that could be potential safety hazards. And I remember there was one service trip that we were going to do to go help build some building. He's like, I can't come. I said, what are you talking about? You're really good at building stuff. He's like, no, I cannot come. And he wasn't able to compartmentalize because he would have seen all the safety risks rather than a bunch of
yeah.
teenagers working with power tools. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, I don't know if I can do. I mean, I don't talk about service design. Period. Really.
Was there
No, sorry.
was
I
there
don't talk. Sorry. Yeah.
Was there ever a moment with the book where you're like, because I mean, you said you started writing this book not really fully realizing what you were doing or stepping into. Was there ever a moment that just felt so surreal and you're like, I can't believe this is my life now?
Yeah. Oh, there were a few. I tell you three. The first one was like we were starting writing the manuscript, getting people on board, like starting it really as a big project, but we didn't have a publisher. And I thought like, okay, maybe we self-publish, maybe we didn't we didn't know. I actually exchanged some emails with another guy who was working on a self-published book at that time, which also became ridiculously famous and changed his life as well.
I know what you're talking about.
Yes, and because we were like okay, self-publishing, how do you do it? Right? It was not really a thing there, and luckily, I think it was through an introduction by Arne. I met Rudolf from Biz Publishers.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And Biz Publishers was one of those crazy publishing houses that said, okay, that is a crazy project. You have basically your manuscript done. Jacob, because of his thesis, created a prototype of the book, and we printed the whole book without content. Print one, like just one book. The whole content was, I think, it was Goethe's Werther that we used there. We just printed some text there, right? But the layout was done; it was complete. So we put both in front of Rudolf at Biz, and he said, "You're crazy. I like that. Let's do it." And only then we got it published. And what happened then was the book got published and it sold well and so on. And there were two moments where I really thought like, what the fuck is going on? And one of those moments was, I think 2 years later at the European Design Awards. So Jacob put it into different awards, like the Red Dot Award and some stuff, and we won that, and it was fine. But then at this European Design Awards, in the book category, we won the Gold Award, like the best layout of Europe in that year. And for like Jacob was 26 at that time, I think. It was fantastic. The youngest designer ever who won this award there. And there was like a big celebration. And at the end of the show, there's the biggest prize of the whole event. It's called the Best of Show. So from all awards that they passed out, they picked the one that was the biggest thing of European design of that year. And the jury of it, by the way, are all design magazines of Europe, or the major ones of Europe at that time. And then we won this award. And I think that was a moment like goosebumps where we just, that can't be us. And then we were on stage and was just one moment like, okay, what happened? What really happened here? And the second moment where I thought like, what the fuck is going on? Was in a similar year, or maybe 1 or 2 years later, at one of those service design conferences where there was a dinner party or something. We were standing outside and having a drink, and there were like a few other people around us. And then I remember there was this one lady who then looked at my name badge and froze her face freeze, like no movement anymore. Then looked at me like, "Are you the Marc Stickdorn?" I said, "Yes, I guess so." And she had tears in her eyes. And I said, "What the heck is going on?" One of those moments, Arne, what you said when the folks from Japan came over, you're like what? Why? What? Just a book. Come on, like hello.
I
of
miss
the
those days.
strange. It was strange. These were the moments like, okay, what happened here?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I can understand if you're making like very personal art, right? Maybe somebody connects deeply with your art and it helps them through a personal time. But service design, I mean, it's all necessary. We all need it. But to have tears in your eyes for
Yeah, Morgan,
design,
but you know something? You're right, of course. It's crazy, but I had those moments, quite many of the moments like this, similar. Maybe not tears, and not. I mean, nobody cries when they see me, but well, out of misery, maybe. But no, no, but seriously, those moments were there, that you go like, why? What's happening? You know, this is not. You know, why am I here? You know, because is that me? Are you asking me to do this thing? And so it had something to do with the excitement around this movement, and
that's
it
what
had
I was just
it
wondering.
had nothing to do with service design per se. It had to do something with a time where there was a relatively small group of people feeling that they were going to change the world. There was something going on. It was exciting, and it were, you know, so it's, I don't know, there's something, like I said earlier, I miss those days where you felt that you were really going to do something, change something. We're still doing it. I mean, it's not gone at all. I mean, we're actually doing the work more now than we were doing it
More
then, for
impact than ever. Yeah.
totally, absolutely. But there's sort of a, I don't know, there's a feel, it's me, maybe you don't have that, but
No,
there's
I
this.
know what you mean. And for me, I realized later, like what happened was we helped people in their career decisions or in their career paths.
Yeah.
And it became very personal things. Like later on, people told me like this book gave me permission to do it. We talked about this. This
Oh,
book
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
showed
you gave
me
permission.
a new way of working where I finally found my passion, like similar what happened to me.
Yeah,
But
exactly. Yeah.
now we were able to affect more people through a thing like a book. And like, I guess the same stuff is happening with your podcast, with other publications, right? It's, we are affecting people. Like whatever we do, it has an effect of folks. And if that is a positive effect, and people realize like I change what I'm doing because of that, and it has a massive impact on their private life, I think that is
Yeah.
really what happened at that time.
Exactly. And that is, to me, the core of creative leadership. It is giving people permission by showing them that other things are possible, that they didn't even know it was allowed, or wasn't they didn't even know it was there. So you show them, we showed them, and through your book, you show people sort of options of doing things that people didn't even know it was possible, or they knew it was possible, but the book made it more possible for them, because there, all of a sudden, there's this evidence of like, see, you know, I can be that. And then things, and that really changes things. And you know, same with you know, we talked with Adam, when was it, last week, for the podcast as well, where he talks about his global service jam. It had a similar impact, this
Mhm.
kind of community of people. And this is, maybe this is what my point is, that I think we still have that impact, but but you need community to be part of something that gives you that support and that feeling of, you know, I'm not alone, the social evidence, like, you know, I behave in a different way. And I think we're kind of and I spoke to someone this morning. She was a service designer, first independent, and then she was hired by this large company to be their service designer. And then basically because they had no clue what that was. And then you see the same with UX a lot. Like people go into UX and they become UXers, and then all of a sudden they're just creating like websites or something, you know, digital tools or something, and they don't do the research anymore. And then so they get like, so I, you know, having the feeling of not being alone, the feeling of, I know there's something out there, and hey, here's this cool group of people that are very open. Because also remember this, that when I went into service design thinking, I was working at a design firm, design agency. At that in that sort of design agency kind of industry space, everything was really close. It was like my clients, my method, my world, I own this. This is mine. This is my IP. This is my thing. And all of a sudden, there were kind of these agencies popping up, like Engine Group and LiveWork, that were kind of saying, "Hey, here are all the tools." And here's like, this is how we do things, and we're just going to tell you everything. We're like, whoa. And I was like, whoa, we need part of this thing. And so that's the other thing. We opened the door, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden everybody could belong to it. They could be part of it,
Mm.
whereas before that you couldn't be part of something. You can, so I think that's sort of where people go like, you made this possible, and it's yeah, I can, yeah, exactly. So it
I
changed
think
it.
it's a natural evolution as well of an approach, right? If you think of
Right.
Engine and LiveWork, I mean, they were even before like 2008, like 8 years
Yeah.
before that, they were trying
Yeah.
to push, right? And
Yeah.
they needed to raise awareness for this thing, service design. If we think about that, like the first years, 2008, or let's say 2000, if we include like academically, Birgit Mark are teaching service design in the design school in Cologne, and LiveWork and Engine pushing for it. And then a community happened. I think that was a time like 2008 when the community really started to grow, and we became part of it, when so many became part of it. But we were still pushing for the approach, still explaining what it is, still figuring it out for ourselves, because it was never written in stone what it is. And thankfully, LiveWork and Engine was sharing a lot, which helps also the community to create a common understanding. And big chunks of what you read in the service design thinking book is also based on their publication. I think their definition from both of them in our book and so on. And then there was a different time, and it changed from sharing a lot to a competition, because what happened then for a few years was there were not enough service designers out there. There was so much business to be made in service design. Every organization wanted to do it, but there were not enough people who could actually do it. And we saw a competition for people. And then, like in the last few years, it shifted again from not enough people to, times are getting tougher, right? With all the layoffs that we're seeing now, with the recession, budget getting cut. So suddenly we see the opposite. There are people without a job now because there are not enough jobs right now. And still, yes, there are more than ever, like more people than ever working in service design, having a bigger impact than we ever had in public services and private services, but also times got tougher. I think that is why we see less sharing now. However, there are other approaches coming up. Like for the last few years, I was pushing journey management, or how I prefer to call it, journey map operations, where I see like similar patterns happening. Like we are at the starting point where a community emerges, where people are doing it, where we start establishing. I'm doing a new book about it now, trying to create a standard of how we talk and create a common language we can use. And again, with the same intention, because I saw it happening before, to bring this into as many organizations as possible. So it's still happening, it's just on different maturity levels, depending on the approach that you're looking at.
Yeah, and it's the so of course it's still happening, and again, so I think it's also about language and sure, context. So things change, for sure. So I mean, the way we the way we talked about service design in the early days obviously isn't makes no sense now anymore, because we moved on, and things like, for instance, journey mapping, for instance. I mean, I don't know any company that is not doing journey mapping in one way or another, right or wrong. I mean, whatever they do, but they do it. They're using it. They're using personas. The right way or the wrong way, doesn't matter. But they have the language you understand. I get that it is changing, but still, I also see that the problems with that we had at the time wanting to create the systems, because basically, so in service design there was also kind of a sort of a split at one point where you had the service design sort of agencies and people that kind of moved towards what I would say more towards UX. And then there's the service design that went more towards change management consultancy, which were like the service dominant logic kind of people who said, no, it's a systemic thing. You can't just go and, design a service and implement it. You have to go internally. So that was also somehow, that was also happening. And that's interesting because, like I went more towards the service dominant logic kind of consultancy kind of world, a change world, where I started competing with the consultancies, which was a surprising thing to me as well. So it's also words either. So it's a really interesting, I know, that I can't explain it in a podcast, but this feeling of worlds separating and moving towards each other. So it's colliding worlds and splitting up worlds. It's constantly moving, back and forth. So, which is such a, so sometimes we're kind of a little bit lost. We go like, where are we now? This is like, what?
And because the term became such a thing, people started using the term like service design washing certain approaches, right? Like people say, okay, we do UX design, we need a new word now, and we call it service design. And even worse, like cases like people say they do service design, then you ask, okay, what do you do? Oh, we do it every Thursday. What exactly are you doing? Oh, we meet and we put ideas on post-its. Like, okay, and do you follow up on that? Oh no, we just do it every Thursday.
I know. So so my thing is that that sometimes it's hard not to get frustrated, where you go like, oh God, did we do anything? Did anything change really? And we're just human beings. The problems are sometimes quite, but this is my point where I think we are, everything is there still. So also the old kind of mental models are still there, and we are still, there's still maybe it's just a 1 foot, or maybe it's only a toe, or it's still in the first, industrial revolution. And I know we're supposed to be in the fourth industrial revolution or something, but we're in the first and second and the third and the fourth, and probably we're in our brain
at the same time.
At the same time.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's the thing. And that's confusing as hell. And it's supposed to be, and that's the fun part, but we're all there. It's still all there. It's nothing left.
There's this indigenous people group that live in South America, and they're split over 3 countries. So I don't want to say that they're only in one country. But typically in Western culture, we view the past as something behind us, and we look forward towards the future. And so we'll say, oh yeah, I'll do that tomorrow. And we wave our hand forward, like time literally exists physically in front of us, right? And oh yeah, yesterday you would throw your hand over your shoulder, referring to behind you. This people group, they view the past in front of them, and that they're walking backwards slowly into the future, so that they can keep their eyes continually on the past. And every day as they take 1 step backwards into the future, it kind of moves up on their peripheral vision.
That's beautiful.
Isn't that spectacular? And there was one paper that this guy dove in and was like, okay, but how does this also impact how they communicate, impact how they think about things? And he still wanted to do, of course, more research, but then he also noticed their hand movements would be like yesterday, and they would refer to the physical space in front of them. And if they talk about the future, they would refer to something that they cannot yet see. And I think that if we could also, like you're saying, the past, like the industrial revolutions, yeah, we're in the 4th one, but we haven't forgotten about the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and our brains are still in also those places as well. And so it's
because at one point we were saying, we're still hunter-gatherers, like that's a long time ago, right? But we're still that. And the industrial revolution, that's not that long ago. really, if you think about it, it's not that long ago. Things don't change that quickly. But at the same time, we were saying everything changes really quickly. It's like really fast. Everything changes. Like, oh, AI is like, the world is different now than it was yesterday. And yes, maybe that's true in a certain way, in a certain level, but on another level, we humans are still the same people.
Yeah.
All we need is, love, really. So, right, but it's true, we need to kind of, our needs are basically about, we're trying to be happy, and trying to be healthy.
Mhm.
That's really all we're trying to do. There's nothing really more. There is nothing more. I mean, right? And we have all these things we do to get both done, and it's never done, and then we die, right? And so, sorry.
That's true. Yeah.
Very fatalistic, yes.
Be true.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is true, and so, yeah, I don't know what my point is there. Like, it's true. That's it. That's all that.
Things
That's all I
change
wanted to say.
not as much as we think they do. Like humans are going
Exactly.
to keep being humans. The world is going to keep shifting around us, but we'll always be humans. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's important to know, because sometimes we feel that we need to speed up because technology is speeding up, and I think technology should allow us to kind of actually relax. It should help us to be more human, and we have to become, as one person said in the podcast, I think it was Sarah, we have to become better humans. Who's that again? We have to become better.
Yeah, Adam. Yeah.
Oh, Adam said this. Yes,
Yeah.
Adam. Which is actually Christina Anderson, from a lady from Finland, who said that first to me at a conference. She's the quantum technology IT lady from Finland, a robot lady, they call her. And so years ago, she said the point is we have to become better humans.
Mm-hmm.
But technology should help us. It should be there to kind of give us more time, but somehow it gives us less time. So you are the German computer guy, which sounds really impressive. But so what is your point on that? I mean, is there, so when we talk about, and I think about the future, but also technology, I mean, you're offering, so what you're doing, your company offers sort of support through technology, right? It's making, so the way I kind of experienced it was, it made total sense, in the sense that hey, here you're doing all this work, but you can't interact with it. It's either on post this on the wall, and then some designer puts it in design, and then exactly what you said, and then it's static and it doesn't talk and it doesn't live. So we need to make it interactive. We need to make it kind of something that you can work with, and it becomes connected in some way. So, but it's not replacing that. That was sort of, for me, the cool thing. It's not replacing sort of the work you do together in a group of people. You're not doing it behind a computer. You're still doing that with people in a room, with your post-its, with your stuff. You still go through that creative effort, but then you have somewhere to put it, and then it lives on, right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, but that changed. That massively.
That's
changed
where it started,
through the
right?
Pandemic. That's where it started. Yeah, absolutely.
You're talking about the software?
The Smaply software. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to even mention the Surface Fellow, which was also
that was a great tool. But
yeah, it was, because that's so. Yeah, I just quickly, in my brain, the Surface Fellow was brilliant because your connection to tourism, because I think that's where, because somewhere there in your brain it made sense, and it made sense because of your experience in tourism. Simply, the way at least I played around with it one day was that you had a app on a phone, and that app allowed you, and now it doesn't sound that sophisticated, by the way, but it was
2008 when
now it's like duh, but then it was like, oh wow. So you would go on a trip, and like I described earlier, a taxi, airport, etc., a hotel, and so you can take pictures of moments in your journey that stood out for you, and then, or all the touch points really, or anything really, and then you could take a picture of it, or you could put like a smiley or frowny or a little story. You can add context,
Videos,
video context to that
GPS
moment.
position.
Oh yeah, GPS. Oh wow, you see, yeah,
See
right.
it on
So
the map even.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I did that. Yeah. And then we kind of you put it into a computer, and it kind of generated this journey with pictures and everything, which was like, whoa, that's really cool. Because it's all of a sudden you have this. So you could imagine, like, for a travel organization, literally in this case, I mean for any, but in this case was such a simple thing to kind of realize, wow, if you're a travel organization, you can get this data, just real people just going like, this lobby of the hotel is horrible, blah, 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 or, or something. And then you go, and then it becomes this journey, right? That was what happened to this service fellow.
So it's actually my PhD is this thing, right? My PhD is describing the design process of what I called mobile ethnography. And I started with that in 2008, and we built a thing, and actually became a startup, and it became a thing. But then with the pandemic, we had to close it down because there was not sufficient market, and it was always like the side project beside our main product Smaply, and that's why we decided to stop it and resurrect it at some point as part of Smaply. But
yeah, exactly.
What happened was when we started with that in 2008, and again, like a big thank you to the business school I was working in, because it gave me a lot of freedom in my research as well. So I got grants for it, so I brought also money in to do it, and there was publicly funded research fund to create this thing, and then because it was publicly funded, we provided it for free. So the first, I think, 3 or 4 years, everybody could use it for free. And we had like cities using it and asking their citizens to document their life and document like whatever goes well or bad. We had mega sports events where we used it. I think it was the Euro 2012 in Poland where we used it as well for research projects to understand what's positive on the spectator experience, what's negative, and so on. So it had quite a nice impact. But what happened was we actually established this tool as a research practice called mobile ethnography. If you Google mobile ethnography now, you find loads of tools who are doing this, and there's actually like it became a thing, and now people are using it. I think it's fantastic what we did there by starting it and pushing it, and that is how academic research should work, right? You experiment, you test it, and now there are companies who are offering it, and people are using it. I think it's fantastic.
And what about Smaply? How did that change?
So Smaply, like journey mapping, changed from, in the beginning, it was purely about visualization. And that was like the first few years. I think in 2016, we launched our second version, which was mainly about bridging the analog world and the digital world. So we included things like Smaply Capture, where you could take a photo of post-it at the walls, and then it creates a journey map in the tool, and then you can plot it out again. You can add more post-its to it, and so on. The core focus was about visualization. In the years after 2016, we then added more and more integrations to also show live data. We added abilities to connect journeys with each other, and it became this thing that journeys become a dashboard, and I like to call it an information system that helps organizations to take more customer-centric decisions, to get an overview of what are the pain points, what's going wrong, and which level of detail. So building hierarchies of journeys and so on. And we pushed it with the tool that we launched 2016 as far as we could with the tech stack. At some point we said it doesn't work anymore. Let's switch. So we now have a new version, which we soft launched, which is purely focusing on journey management, or how I prefer to call it, journey map operations, because I learned bringing in any approach that includes the name management creates a lot of hurdles in an organization, and language matters so much. So turning down the language and being crucial about how you call things when you bring something new to an organization is really essential to create adoption.
Yeah, exactly. People get stuck on language a lot, but which is logical because that's also part of who we are, humans, right? So if you have a word for something, it has all this meaning, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. We had a phrase that we would use a lot: words create worlds.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, when I was a student, I was like, oh, this is so annoying. Why do you keep saying this? And now I'm like in the like, this is entirely true.
It is.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
is.
exactly. Yeah, so how is it to be a father?
Oh gosh, it sounds so. Another thing, like you heard it so often, but then it's beautiful. I love it. It's one of the most rewarding things in the world. Like there are these small human beings who just show unconditioned emotions, and that is mostly love, but sometimes also hate, right? And it's switches between that. Like one moment they scream, "I hate you," and then the next moment they cuddle with you and say, "Oh, I didn't mean it. I love you." Oh,
Yeah.
it's a roller coaster of emotion. I absolutely
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. If you become a parent, it's also inescapable or something. You go once you have a kid, you're like, oh, I'm a parent. It's like you kind of like, I don't know yet. No, it's like, boom, you're there. So
Yeah.
right?
And you cope with it, right? Like I
Yeah,
think nature does the wonderful thing because the with your first kid, the first few years, I think you have constantly the feeling you are overwhelmed. You cannot cope with everything. Like there's too much stuff going on. And if you then reflect on that, you realize that actually the challenges increase with the time. Like in the beginning, it's actually not challenging at all if you look at it afterwards. But in this moment, you think, oh shoot, how do I do this? But then you realize later, oh, actually it was nice with this newborn that you can just put somewhere and
yeah, it's like,
for 2 years.
yeah,
They can't fall down anywhere, right?
they
They
can't
just
run
lie
away.
there in the beginning.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
so easy. But in this moment, you think, oh, I'm going to break it. It's going to be like, oh gosh, I'm going to make everything wrong. But yeah, I think nature does a
Yeah.
wonderful job there.
Yeah, when my daughter was born, she was born in the hospital because we do home birth in the Netherlands, by the way. So my son was born at home, which I do not recommend it to anyone. I won't have more kids, but if I would, never again. Anyway, but I don't know why we do these things. It's horrible.
Do I want to ask why? No, I don't want to ask. No, I don't want to ask.
It's a traditional thing. We home births are like, that's what you do.
No, I mean, like, why wouldn't you recommend it
Oh,
anymore? Like, I'm not
because
sure if I want to know.
no, it's just because you go like, oh my God, what is, because it's such a moment of vulnerability and angst, really. Like, you're like, something, what if something goes, is there a doctor here? Like, there's like, so as a man specifically, because as a man, you go like, I have no function. But it's so important.
I'm proud
It's
of
so,
you.
this has to go right. This is really, really important. Stuff is happening and I have nothing. I can't do anything. I have no clue. And so you're like, oh yeah, sure. Okay. All right. Yeah. Are you okay? Okay, dear. Yes.
Would your wife say
Uh,
the same? Would she say,
no,
it's
my wife said, "Ah! This hurts. Oh God, no." Dude, that's what she said. And I like, oh, it's okay. It's okay.
but
And
it
I
would
my
also
brain
hurt
went,
at
oh
the
my God.
hospital.
Sorry, what?
It's also going to hurt at the hospital.
Oh, it was horrible. But then there was a doctor. No, at the hospital, they basically induced the labor because so the contractions. So she got
Yeah.
some stuff to kind of make her contractions go, which is worse. So actually, there was a screen where I could see it coming up, and before she knew, and I was like, "There's going to be a big one." And she's
Oh.
like, "What do you mean?" Oh, and she said, like, "You asshole." So anyway, that was different. But it was a doctor. There was a nurse. There were doctors. They came in like, "How are you doing?" Stuff like that. That we were there for the day. Anyway, the point was that my daughter was born, my first child, and then she was okay. They looked and tested, and was like, "Oh, she's fine. Okay, here's like," and they were like, "All right." well, here's your baby. And we're like, what? Yeah, you can go home. Uh, okay. With the baby. Yes, of course. And we're like, yes, you go. And we're like, oh my, yeah, we're ready. Oh yeah, we have the whole stuff at home. We have the diapers and thing, everything's home. We try to read the book about it, and we're like, can we just go? No one's stopping us?
You just
Isn't a nurse coming with us? Like, we're gonna explain this to you, So there's a course first. There's a course. Yeah, you get your diploma. No, you have a baby. It's there, it's yours. And you go home and it's like, to your point, Mark, you're like, is this okay?
Yep.
And how has, because I'm not a parent, but how has being a parent influenced how you operate professionally?
Yeah, because you were traveling all over the place, right? So,
Yeah. Well, luckily, like there was that changed a lot with the pandemic, right? Before the pandemic, yes, I was traveling way too much. Like
yeah, you were.
It was unhealthy. It was.
We could tell from a distance, even from just looking on social media, like, that's not Mark.
I stopped posting.
You were in Japan, and now you're in Brazil. That was wasn't that last week? You're going to be tired, man.
Yeah, and I stopped posting it because people like there was a time when I was sharing it, and of course, at the beginning, everything is exciting, right? You're traveling for work, woo!
Yeah.
Oh,
they pay me to travel.
Wow, and
Another hotel, another airport, yeah.
Yay,
that's the thing, right? You don't. At some point, you really travel for work, and then traveling becomes part of work, and of course, like not only considering the impact on you, but also considering the ecological impact of traveling. Like I sometimes travel somewhere, it's like, fuck this, Zoom. Why do I need to spend a day traveling for something that we could do online? It does not make sense, and it has just a massive negative impact on the world. So I didn't want to travel that much anymore. And then with the pandemic, but the thing was, organizations were not there yet. Like when we did online training for, I don't know, 10, 15 years now, but organizations didn't want that. Like they want consulting, they want you being present there. And yes, in some cases it makes sense, but I think in the majority of cases, it does not make sense. And then with the pandemic, it came all to a halt for at least an entire year, which I think really realized, where loads of organizations realized, okay, a lot of that can be done differently. And thankfully, with the online training experience we had together with Adam and Marcus and This Is Service and Doing and so on, we also have the equipment to run really good online trainings. So it doesn't feel boring and like there's so much shit outside there, right? When you go to online trainings, it's like, oh gosh, this is so boring. This is so, I understand why people don't like it. But if you make it fun and entertaining, like a radio show, like a TV show, then people really like it. And they actually prefer it to traveling somewhere for a training or for a meeting or for a workshop, whatever. And the same happened in projects and consulting. Like we can do a lot of that stuff online. And if you do it right, it actually has some advantages. And you still need face-to-face interaction, and it helps you to establish trust between people, to get to know people really well, because you have this serendipity of what happened between the planned session that you don't have online. But you can minimize that and actually use a nice mix of it. I think that happened. And now I'm traveling not that much anymore. And I don't want to travel because I want to spend time with my family.
Yeah, same here. It happened exactly the same.
Which now sometimes means, of course, like I need to work at strange times, right? I give trainings like in the middle of the night.
Yeah, but otherwise you would have flown there. So I mean,
that's the thing,
right?
Exactly.
That's even worse. So yeah, it's great. Isn't that great? These pandemics, I love them.
Careful what you say.
We should have more pandemics. That's a lesson, really. We should have more pandemics because it makes our life so much better. No, it doesn't. Sorry. If anyone
No.
is offended by this, I am not serious. But it does, but
But it did
I
offer a really interesting thing is that it forced us all to
yes,
rethink everything.
exactly. There is,
And
which
that
is
is
such a
super
good lesson.
uncomfortable, you know, besides like the people dying everywhere and the not, you know, not
Besides the
adequate.
people dying, yeah. Besides that, like the inconvenient things of people dying.
But it just reforces you to rethink everything. And I think that's also really, you know, some people then were like, okay, well, let's just go back to life as normal. Like, yeah, why would you do, like, why would you want to do that? Like, you
Yeah,
just have this opportunity to, yeah.
but we do also need then, so like what Mark was saying, and you know, you also need to have people like Mark, like Adam, who can show that in this new space, in this new reality where you can't travel for a while, you can actually do things, deliver things
Yeah.
in a way that people didn't even know. Again, you know, that is again also leadership. That's also saying, instead of saying, oh no, I don't know what to do, and you know, staying with the old, is you go like, yeah, but wait a minute, we kind of we can reinvent ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think, right, and so that's what you've done. You when like, but you know, because you already had this experience, and you already invested in the technology and the stuff that you needed to create this, but not just the technology, but also the understanding of it has to be entertaining, it has to be, you know, the
Yeah.
experience. So we're, you know, like you said, you know, which to me also made total sense. What if it's, if you're looking at a screen, you're competing with television, right?
Yeah,
What does
that's it.
television do, right? So exactly. So what if it's what if we can use this entertainment kind of idea, or to, you know, in sessions, because people are, they love watching television. Why would they hate watching a workshop? Oh, maybe it's just really boring, and you know, next slide, you know, like,
Yeah, yeah.
you're like, oh my God, of course. Would you like it? No. So reinventing it, redesigning it is sort of, again, it you know, could say that's service design, because your service as a professional, as a consultant, as a designer, as a business person, your service is creating that experience for the people that you serve.
Yeah.
So that's also part of how you think, right? So
Correct. Yes.
And I think in humanity's credit, I think when people have examples of how things are done, then they can get really excited and, oh, hey, he's not just giving me a PowerPoint presentation. He's, you know, you know, he's doing something different. And then they get really excited about, oh, maybe I could also do that too. Or you were even
yeah,
saying with the book, right? You gave people examples or put a name on it, or were able to kind of, yeah, we're already out there doing it, but maybe you just didn't see the example already. And that when you can lead people in that way, say, hey, I'm trying something new and it's working, let me share it with you. I think people are really excited and, of course, much more open to changing when they see that somebody else has kind of stepped before them, they can provide a blueprint. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that excites me, but I just wish more people would take that step for themselves sometimes. Yeah. To try it
But
out.
yes, I totally agree. But I also want to say, like, a lot of things came together why it worked so well in the examples we talked about, right? The books we did and so on. There was like a big component is luck. Just being lucky, just having the
yeah,
right interaction at the moment. And while you can't change how lucky you are, you can increase the chances for luck. And I
exactly.
think that is really, really fantastic. Like if you think of where could I be lucky, and just open up your perspective there, say, okay, we can try not put all eggs in one basket, as I say in business, but to try loads of different things. And you might be lucky with one of them. If you just try
Exactly.
one, your chances of luck are small. If you try
Yeah.
loads of things, you increase it.
Yeah, exactly. But so yeah, and then the difficulty is then when that one thing out of 1,000 other things becomes successful, people just look at that one thing and say, I need to do that one thing,
Yeah.
when actually you did 1,000 things, right? So no, it's not the one thing. It was just doing 1,000 things, and one of those things, which is a common, I mean, we all know this. I mean, this is not, there's nothing new about this. There's nothing, this is like trying stuff out. We all know this, especially, but at the same time, I don't know why it's so difficult for people to do it. I know it's easier for people to give you a recipe and say, just do this and then you'll be successful, but it doesn't work that way. But it's so difficult for people to kind of go just do a million things. And I think I think there is a difference between people where there are people it comes easier to them to do all these things, and people who find it very difficult. They need to kind of be guided a little bit more, maybe because they're more insecure. I don't know, because of content. I don't know, but I think there are people who, it's the same with people who, in my experience, for instance, I would organize something like we've been organizing over the years, something we called it unconferences, and then we called it designer DNA, whatever, meetups. Okay, people came, they loved it, it was great, and people were like, hey, and okay, I left Design Thinkers, and obviously also because of the whole pandemic, I stopped doing it, and then recently I reached out to a bunch of people again, like, shall we go and do it? And they said, yeah, because I really missed it. It's amazing. And I'm like, then do it. So you need, who's stopping you from doing this? So I'm like, no, there are people who are organizers. They organize stuff, they do stuff, they put things together, they put people together, and they go like they're upfront and they go and do it. And then there's other people who will show up and they'll love it. But if you don't do it anymore, they won't do it. It stops, it dies. Like your tourism conference, service design and tourism conference. I mean, if nobody does it, if you don't do it, nobody will. People need for you to do these things, right? If so, there's a lesson there where I say I think that this you need to also to have people, and if you are one of those people, go and do organized stuff, because otherwise it will not happen. Go and run things, go and come up with stuff and try 1,000 things, do it, but don't expect other people to do it for you, because they won't, right? Yeah.
I think that is one of the essences of creative leadership, that you understand that if one thing works, then probably it is because someone tried it 1,000 times before and it didn't work. But if we look at culture and organizations, and luckily that is one thing that is changing. If we look at culture and organizations, often we only look at the one thing that worked and we try to replicate it. And anything that doesn't work, we see as a failure, we see as it induced costs or whatever. We don't often understand enough what is the pathway to actually be successful with something. And that we need all these learnings until there. And the only mistakes people can do is if you ride too long on a dead horse, as they say in business, right? If you invest too much into something without trying it, understanding does this work or not, and then learn from it and move on. But often we don't do small experiments, but we do big decisions in organizations. And big decisions come with a big budget, come with big failures. Instead, we should do a series of smaller decisions that helps us to learn faster. And I think that is, for me, it is the essence of creative leadership.
Yeah, exactly. So last question. I can talk forever, and we should at one point, but then maybe have over dinner. So how do you see the sort of the future, and not just of service design, but it's sort of this, how do you see the future of what's happening, with sustainable solutions that we need, with AI, with there all that stuff that's happening, because we are still in the middle of stuff that's happening somehow, and you're part of kind of that world, like we all are. So what is your sense? How can you make sense of it? And
in just a minute, no.
There's
so much going on, right? And work is changing. we experienced that ourselves. Like we're moving towards a fully remote company, something I would never have expected 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I was really like, my basic understanding was we need the whole team together so we can co-create and work together and so on. And that was one of our core ideas for this company. And then we learned, no, it's actually not true. Like, yes, you need moments when you get together, but working remote is totally fine. And that is changing not only in our company, but everywhere. And I think people start to understand. But that also means, like, how do you organize your private life if you work from home? Like one thing is, like, do you have the environment to work in, right? And some people don't. Like some team members work in like from a shared flat, and you can't do serious work if there are drunken students in your background, right? It's hard. So you need to understand the reality and offer solutions for that as an organization. And AI is another thing there. Like, AI has a massive impact on how we work. It can help us a lot and help you with, like, automating stupid tasks and get faster done with stuff. And that's cool. I also see areas where AI is applied in our field of work where I see negative impacts. Like a year ago, we started experimenting with using generative AI for creating journey maps. And what I learned is, if you offer that, people often just take what AI tells you, like, this is the journey. Okay, great, we're done. And then they add, like, pieces of data to it. They fall, of course, into confirmation biases there, where they only take into account data that supports the journey that AI provided them based on data from 5 years ago from other contexts. And that is really dangerous. So I think the danger of it is that you get really fast to good looking results that can be really biased and misleading. And I think what I see right now is people don't spend enough time doing actual research and really understanding and trying to build up empathy, and empathy in a way of understanding you are always wearing your own shoes. You cannot wear the shoes of someone else. You can only try to understand to the possible extent how the reality is for others. And for that, we need to listen and spend time with humans. And I think sometimes we're not doing that enough. What excites me, to end on a positive note,
I was going to ask that. What excites you? Yeah.
Is how much this approach of journey management, even though I don't like this term, it's the established term now, so we're using it. But it's the same thing about service design, right? I don't like the term service design, still I'm using it.
Every time you use it, you say, so you have to kind of explain why you hate the word management.
Because that's the story I told for the last 5 years, right? I always... So I need to explain why I'm using it.
I know. We as your fans and followers, so we all went like, what word is he using?
Yeah.
But
anyway,
you're excited about.
No matter which label you use,
yes.
I'm excited that finally we're getting really, really traction with that. So we see different vendors offering different software solution for it. We see companies applying that, investing in it. We see people starting consulting businesses around that. And finally, we get cases where companies say, yes, we're doing it, and we are in a state now where we are able to talk about this, because that was a problem for the last years. And that really helps us to bring in topics like customer centricity, sustainability into decisions where we not try to change the decision-making systems in organizations, but where we offer an information system to do more educated decisions. And people will always do stupid decisions, but we bring transparency to this, so at least they become transparent, stupid decisions.
Beautiful. I think that should be the goal for all of us. Transparent, stupid decisions.
Exactly. Yeah, that's very cool. Okay. Okay, we're going to end there because I have more stuff to talk about, but we already are way over time. We want people to actually also reach the end of these podcasts, which I
Take
don't
them
know.
out soon, yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it was wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed. It inspires me a lot. So
Yes. Well, if that is true for you, that is fantastic, because I just had a really lovely conversation for the last 90 minutes. I really enjoyed it.